Here.
More
Here.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ella. All right, good afternoon. And welcome to the sixth presentation in the Fall 2024 Sustainability Research and Practice Seminar. My name is Bradley Flam. I'm the Director of the Office of Sustainability here at Westchester University. And I'm glad those of you who are here in person are joining us, and those of you who are on Zoom are with us today. Our office is proud to sponsor this series of talks every semester with our colleagues from the Office for Research and Sponsored Programs and the Sustainability Council's Scholarly and Creative Activities Committee. We're grateful to them for the support they give to this program. And as I said, we're grateful to you for joining us today. We're halfway through. Please remember that every Wednesday at this time, except during Thanksgiving week, there are fascinating conversations by faculty, students, and staff who work at Westchester University. And occasionally we have invited guests from other institutions, like we had last week with Professor Hughes from Jeanie University. For those of you joining in by Zoom, you can find a copy of the program on our office's website, wcupa.edu/sustainability, very easy to find. And for those of you in person, there are print copies here at the front. Please feel free to take one back to your offices or your residence halls or wherever you live and post them so that others learn about the series. With that, I will say two more quick things. One, this is a busy day for the Office of Sustainability. There are two fascinating lectures starting at 3:30 and 5 o'clock today. Information again on our website and here at the front of the room. The second thing I want to say is just please join me in warmly welcoming Professor Jeanie Subach and Ella Messner.
Okay, hi everyone. So Brett, thanks for that kind introduction. And I love how you said this is a conversation. So it's not going to be a lecture, it's going to be a conversation, because Ella and I had the pleasure of receiving a sustainability grant last year, and we were able to research food purchasing habits of Westchester students in reference to sustainability. So we would love to get your input to add to the data that we collected, because our mission is to take everything that we learned and to bring it back to administration and to share it with students so that we can achieve the sustainability efforts that we're trying to do here on Westchester, at Westchester University. So as Brett said, my name is Jeanie. I'm a professor in the Department of Nutrition. That great big food lab that you see next to the dining hall, that's my playground. And that's where a lot of sustainability happens on campus. We compost, we buy local, we are very specific in the ingredients that we're purchasing, the quantities that we're purchasing, and then also the cooking methods that we're using for that. So that's my passion of cooking and using whole foods and getting people to learn about nutrition so that they can sustain a healthy lifestyle. And with me is student extraordinaire. So I hope that you are students as good as Ella, with her passion and her desire to educate people. And we're gonna walk you through what we did. So the strategic priorities of the university, one of them is sustainable purchasing. So Ella and I, we have no input on what Aramark buys. We have no input on purchasing within the university because that's not our wheelhouse. But we were concerned about how students are purchasing, because what do you see, Ella, what do you see students walking around with on campus?
Well, one, they want to make conscious effort, but they are not, maybe eating all the food, or there's food waste, and then they're throwing out the packaging, because all food has a lot of packaging, especially if we don't get this.
Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of the habits, and Ella last year worked a lot with Students for Sustainable Action, and also she's very active in a program called the Food Systems Management Club. So the Food Systems Management Club, anybody can join, but nutrition majors mostly. And what we do is once a month, we put on a program called College of Health Sciences Nourish. So if you ever in the SEC or down in Sturgis, Carter Drive, or Whiteland, once a month, we give a meal in order to help combat food insecurity on campus, so that we're feeding people that might be going to class and don't have anything in their stomach. We saw a big challenge of the grab and go. So whenever you see these big functions, you know, is it plastic packaging? And we go to great lengths to make sure that we are producing the food in a way that it is food safe, and food safety is a big issue. And that's why sometimes you see so much packaging, but that the students can grab it, they can eat it. And we always try to kind of buy local and make sure that the portions are not so big that it's going to be wasted. So we came up with this idea because Ella was really concerned about what she was seeing on campus. We wrote the grant and we decided that we were going to do this program in 4 different segments, okay? So segment 1, Ella, was what?
So first we met all the participants down at the South Campus Gardens. I work in the gardens, so we decided to have our first meeting there. And there we prepared like an oat dish, and that was all under $25. The students were like astonished that we could provide the meals for all of them from within $25. And we went through a list of questions, and this was like a pre-intervention. So we were like establishing the baseline education level of the purchasing practices that they have in sustainable.
So number 1, we got everybody together and we asked the question, what's it? Yes.
I'm curious, who were these students
Well-
that you talked to?
So it's interesting because in the beginning, when we tried to recruit, we had a hard time recruiting because students had to commit to 4 different sessions. And, you know, it was in March, everybody was getting ready for spring break and then the summer. So we actually ended up starting it in the June session because we had a lot of students on campus that did not have access to the dining halls. And we thought of the incentive. So quickly coming back, there was 4 segments. So the first one was an informational session, as Ella just said. The second one was a supermarket tour. The third one was a trip to the growers market. The fourth one was another focus group and a meal. So what was the incentive to get the students? They got a $25 DoorDash gift card, which will explain why. They got a $25 Giant gift card, we'll explain why. They got a $25 growers market gift card, we'll explain why. And at the end of the session, they got a compost bin for their countertop. They got reusable food covers for their food at home. And they got a delicious meal and they got a canvas tote bag. Okay, so we had 4 different sessions. So the first session, as Ella said, we brought them to the campus garden. We had a meal and we provided them with this beautiful breakfast, and it was oats and it was berries. And we were lucky because it was in season and we had local berries. And as Ella said, they were astonished at the cost of it and the freshness of it and the ease of preparation. But we asked the question, what does sustainability mean to you? And we got a couple answers. What were some of the answers, Ella?
A lot of them said it was like caring about the environment, making a conscious effort, caring about health, and a lot about environment and the earth, basically.
Yeah, so they, you know, caring for Mother Earth and, you know, making sure that we're recycling and things like that. I added that in addition to all those things that are so important, sustainability to me is doing those things, but is it something that you can sustain? Is it something that you can continue to do? Because how many people have ever gone on a vegan diet? Okay. And great, wonderful. We know that vegan diets can be very, very healthy, but how hard is it? It's pretty hard, because what happens if you're, how do you know someone's a vegan? They'll tell you. And they'll tell you because there's a lot of cooking, there's a lot of shopping, there's a lot of saying, oh, I can't eat this, I can't go to that restaurant. So how sustainable is it? So that's why we might say, be plant-based instead. You can do all these wonderful things of helping the environment and eating a lot of fruits and vegetables and low carbon footprint foods. You can do that, but being plant-based or a flexitarian is a little bit more sustainable. So when you think about sustainability, think about putting a practice in place, but continuing that practice, okay? So if you're one that's always going to, you know, be losing your Stanley, well, buy a cheaper Stanley. So, you know, you have to have a way that you're going to be having numerous vessels for your water rather than the plastic water bottle. So we got a lot of information. We found that the students were passionate about it. The second question we had, what was the second question? Yeah. We asked them what sustainability was. to what extent they're concerned. So let me ask you, how concerned are you about sustainability on campus? Yeah, well, on a scale of 1 to 4, 4 being you're very concerned, 1, oh well.
I think currently now, since I'm a computer, I would say like a 2, but when I was on campus, 3.5.
3.5, and can support that. Why did you give it 3.5?
Like it made sense because I was like directly in the process of what I wanted to do. But now since it's like I'm kind of disconnected from that campus life, it's like I know what I want, yes, and I know it's like right for me, but it's like I can't really contribute to the same capacity that I could on the campus. So it's like rather not stressed.
So how concerned are you for sustainability in your own life?
Pretty concerned, like in the sense of I'm doing what I can to my capabilities at the moment. And like you said, like I can sustain what I'm doing.
Right. Great. Rather than throwing your hands up in the air and saying, how many people have a family member or someone that said, you know, me using a reusable water bottle is not gonna make any difference because everyone else is using plastic water bottles. I know I used to get that from my kids because I would never buy the plastic water bottles, and they were the only kids in school that had, you know, cloth napkins in their lunchbox, and they'd say, Mom, 1 napkin at lunch isn't gonna make a difference. But it does, you know, if we, and I asked my graduate assistants the other day, I said, they're, you know, young men, I said, why aren't you guys concerned about it? And they said, well, we're concerned about it, but I said, do you think you're gonna have an impact? And Ethan said, I know I can have an impact on myself, and I know I can have an impact on the people around me, but I don't know how much impact I can have on other people. And I said, hold that right there, and I tell a story. Dr. Joan Welch, she's a retired faculty member, and she was one of the originators of sustainability on this campus years ago. And I remember the first time that we had a meeting and I had a meal in the lab. Dr. Welch came and she had her own plate and she had her own fork and cup and napkin. And I remember going home and telling my husband, I never knew Joe before, and he goes, oh, she's a showboat. I'm like, no, she's not a showboat. She was showing people that if you are truly passionate, you're going to do something like that. And you know what? After that, almost all the people in the meeting, if we'd have a meal, they would bring their own plate and they would bring their own napkin. So from a sustainability standpoint, yeah, you can make a difference with little things that we can have. So this is the type of conversation that we had for over an hour in that first session. And we gained a lot of information. And next question was, we asked about the barriers.
It was, yeah, for what list WC practices that are sustainable.
So they listed that, we asked them, what are some of the things on campus that we're doing that are sustainable? What do you think they said? What do you think they said? What do you see? What do you see that the campus community is doing that's going to contribute to sustainability?
People think about sustainability from a campus perspective, if they are in like a career educator, for example, they're thinking about like walking, biking, and not necessarily other like acts, but that means the first thing in their minds is just
Okay. What do you think? Anybody else?
the university's made a pretty big deal about the geothermal switch.
The geothermal, okay, other, people in the room, how many people know that we have a geothermal switch? Okay, two, all right, so maybe that's something that we need to do, we need to get into the student body more, that we do have geothermal, and that we're saving a lot of money from it, we're, not only the money, we're helping the environment for that, so, okay, so that, anybody else? How about if you have a glass bottle or a can, you're gonna get rid of it, where are you putting it? In the recycling bin. So what do you think about the recycling bins? What did we hear about the recycling bin?
Well, the top 3 answers, like personally, responses to contributing to sustainability for the water bottles, walking, and then recycling. And students were concerned that we weren't actually recycling on campus. And I visited the recycling in Berks County, and I believe we were recycling, but I don't know, there's some kind of barrier, and students know about greenwashing, but they aren't sure where the sources of it are.
Explain what greenwashing.
Greenwashing is kind of like a facade that, corporations or universities put up to say that they are being sustainable or acting in a green way that's protecting the environment, but maybe they're just fools in what they're saying, and we aren't being truthful.
So the next question we ask is, what are the barriers? Like, what are the barriers on campus for sustainable action? You as students, what are you saying? Like you said, you're a commuter. Is that a barrier for sustainability?
Like, for me personally, no, but like, as a general view, I would say yes.
In what way?
Like for biking, like, yeah, I do, you know, cause I can with a car is like the most convenient, and I do live super far, so biking is not possible. But it's like, there are resources, so they do have like the bicycle biking library, but it's like, it's not really promoted to the masses. Like, I know we promote it, but that's like, you know, for the peer educators, so it makes sense, but it's like, it's not generally broadcasted in the way that like sports events are, cause you know, every time the football game, we get emails. With regard to the football team or, you know, shows or whatever, but it's like for certain like sustainable initiatives, it doesn't get broadcasted like that.
Okay, so look, we're gonna kind of jump around here because that's too good of a response to wait until the end of the presentation, but one of the things that we got from the second focus group is the students said that maybe faculty should have training. So faculty, just as we have our cybersecurity training, our diversity training, that faculty should have a sustainability training, and that it should be woven into the curriculum and put on the syllabi. And that was actually brought up at our big sustainability council meeting last Friday. But do you think that, you know, if something, because who reads emails? You guys get so many emails from administration every day, right? And we say, oh, we send emails out to the students, and there's very few read. So if it was woven into the curriculum and the faculty was constantly talking about this lending library, maybe is that a way?
I think those are really good ideas. I guess my fear about that is like at the end of, we get syllabi and we have like certain anti-racist statements, et cetera, et cetera. And I think what can happen is that I don't think our professors are necessarily negligent of those if they believe in anti-racism and stuff like that. But it can get easy to be like, okay, and you know the anti-racist statement. You know what I'm saying? Because one of those things is like, you know this. And you want, and unfortunately, like, I do think it's a great idea, but that could end up.
Well, it's just gonna get,
Yeah, and
into that
unfortunately,
bottom
that's
of
just like.
when the professor says all these other statements you
Yeah.
can read on your own.
Exactly, that's not a bad thing inherently, I'm sure, it would be great to show like formally these are in so live, like realistically, how it pans out in the classroom. I'm not sure, but I do think some of the emails that I read are like the newsletters, like so for example, I look at the Ram Roundup stuff, or like the diversity ones in particular, like, okay, I go to the sustainability office, one bit of skinny, like, okay, like, is there anything else I'm having to speak or that I need to know that's consistent? But like, I know for specifically for like doubting and stuff like that, I look to, oh, it's an opportunity for something here that, you know, something like that, that could.
So I guess students are gonna open up an email that's of interest to them.
Yes.
So we have to find a way of how can we get to the masses, maybe it's the seed stalls. You know, we're reading about the mocktail this month, so maybe we can read about something else with that. Okay, all right, yeah. So anyway, so that first session, we really got some good information and we kind of talked about it, but we set the stage of saying, look what we purchased, and we fed, we had like 12 people, I think. You fed about 12 people and it was less than $25 for what we served them. And then we gave them the DoorDash gift card, right? And we said, all right, you're gonna take this and we're gonna ask you to purchase a meal, and we're gonna ask you to document the meal. Where did it come from? How was it delivered? Was it foot? Was it bike? Was it, car? What was the packaging? What was the quality of the food? What was the nutrient density of the food? And what was the cost? So we asked that we put that seed in, and that was the second part, that we're gonna do that. But then we went to the local giant, and we asked them to take the loop, but in the summertime, the loop's not really running that much, so, but we did carpool. That again is a barrier of sustainability, that the giant is not really walkable. I mean, you could walk, but it's not that safe. So how are people getting to food, eateries, grocery stores? And in that, we did a supermarket tour, and what we talked about?
Well, we talked about packaging and like the one single use, like, the microwavable rice and that kind of stuff, cans. And then we went into, like imported goods and looking at where you can find where foods are coming from. And organic food, should we be consuming organic food? Is it worth it cost wise? The students, it's hard to purchase food. So we went to that, we went to the Dirty Dozen and looking at, like the health benefits of food.
We really,
The Dirty Dozen.
to the environmental working group, they have this thing, it's called the Dirty Dozen 1515. I don't necessarily agree with 100%. Dirty Dozen are 12 fruits and vegetables that even after washing, there's still a pesticide residue on it. They say that of those 12 foods, you should really only eat organic. And they have the clean 15. So 15 fruits and vegetables that, are safe to eat, not organic. As a nutrition professional, we don't like the Dirty Dozen because we feel that from an equity standpoint, it really kind of separates those, the haves and the have-not, those that can afford organic produce and those cannot. So we just say, and then my personal view is eat organic of what you eat the most of. So right now in soup and stew season, I buy organic carrots, I buy organic celery because I use them on a regular basis. But in this section, we focused on local produce because Giant did have a local produce. We told them to look at that and we educated on if you have a choice between local and organic, if you had that one choice, most professionals would say choose local and know your farmer and know their practices, which set us up beautifully for the next segment, which was the trip to the growers market. Okay, so we looked at the produce, we looked at country of origin, we looked at organic, we looked at packaging, we looked at cost, and we really told them to focus in on that produce and the meat section. And then they were given a $25 gift card to the growers market. Again, we did not do the group tour because logistically we couldn't get everybody together. But we gave them questions that they had to address when they went to the local market. The gift card that they were given was for Linden Hoff Farms, and it's a farm and Axel sells eggs and chickens and all animal proteins, but they did have the option that if they did not want Linden Hoff Farm, I would swap out $25 and they could have $25 to spend in any vendor. But we had them go to a couple of different produce vendors. So they had to look at Blueberry Hill, which is an organic vendor, and then different Amish markets, and then Queen Market, which is organic. And we had them look and see what the offerings are, quality, price, but most importantly, we asked them to look at the environment of the market. What type of customers were at the market? What were they seeing? Were they seeing, as we talk about in our nutrition classes, that the WIC benefits and the SNAP vouchers are, able to be used at the growers market or at the farmers market, and that's how you can get a bigger bang for your buck, things like that. And what do you think they came up with? What do you think the demographics that they explained to us that they saw? I think the term was a lot of rich ladies with cool bags and cool hats and dogs, right? So was that the population in our community nutrition classes that we're trying to say, here are your vouchers, go to the growers market, go to the farmers market and buy? We weren't seeing that, to the point that in our last focus group, it was Fiona, right?
Yeah.
What did she say?
She told a story of her parents' friends that they said that they go to the growers market and it's like a little fun thing to do, and it's like down to earth over there, they want money, and so there wasn't a connection. They weren't understanding that you go to the growers market for the community, you go there to buy locally, go to there to buy organic foods without pesticides. They didn't understand that.
Yeah, they were doing it as a cocktail conversation, a conversation starter that they, oh gosh, I'm being sustainable and I'm doing things like that. And, so there was, again, the disconnect. But what did our students learn from this? They learned that, number one, you can buy produce, sometimes cheaper, sometimes not cheaper than the grocery store. It depends. But it is a community, and I love what Ella said, it is a community, and you're supporting local businesses, and if we can support our local businesses and have people come into Westchester, you go to the growers market, chances are you're gonna go get a cup of coffee, or chances are you're gonna, go buy flowers or things like that. So they really enjoyed that, but the biggest thing was talk about Axel's eggs.
Oh, the yolks of Axel's eggs are like the greatest orange color I've ever seen, because his eggs are walking around the farm, they're eating grass, they're eating worms, they're eating insects, they're eating the diet they're supposed to be eating, and they're not confined to a small area. The chickens are being cared for. I'm a vegetarian, so I've only been eating his eggs for a year now, but
Yeah. So, but it was good because they did talk to the farmers, and you can talk to Axel and everything that Ellen just said about how he raises his hens, and how his beef is grass fed, and it truly is, because he will invite you to this farm. But I think the biggest education was, Troy, the apple guy from Rex Orchards. He will tell you that in this area, to truly have an organic apple orchard is very difficult. So he uses integrated pest management systems, and he explained it to the students, and he was like, you know what, I'm very careful in what I'm using. And this is, look at these beautiful apples, and yes, some of them have blemishes on them, but this is what we can do. So I think the education was richer than just the $25 gift card that they had. So we did that, and then we said, okay, the grand finale, we're gonna bring everybody back. And at the last session, we did what?
so we met in the food lab and we provided another meal. This was like a vegetarian chili. We used rice from the resource pantry, and then we got apples from Highland Orchards, which were great. And we came back and we did went through the list of the student questions. The first question we asked was, after participating in the study, again, what is sustainability mean to you?
And again, everybody, I think everyone just likes to say the word mother. They just like, that sounds kind of, they like very nice to that. They said that, what else did they say?
I feel like there was just more like the conscious, like having intent to go out of their way to make a difference in the environment. A lot of it was environment and health.
Yeah. But then we really got into the DoorDash thing of asking, tell us about your DoorDash experience. So of course, you visualize you're in my foods lab and you're eating this delicious vegetarian chili that most of the ingredients came from the growers market, and the rice came from the resource pantry, because we talked about this, and we have this wonderful food at the resource pantry and utilize it. But what do you do with that can of beans that they have? And what do you do with that rice that they have? And we let them know that it's okay to eat white rice. Don't be sad if you can't get brown rice, and white rice has less arsenic than brown rice. So, we kind of did the education of people feeling good about what we're eating. So they had this beautiful meal. And Ella had salad from the campus garden.
We brought salad and tomatoes from the garden.
The campus garden, we talked about that, and we said, would you utilize the garden? No, we didn't really know about the gardens, and we had this conversation. But the DoorDash thing was fascinating, and we talked about what did you buy, and how did it come to you, what was the packaging. And the one that stood out to me was someone ordered a cup of tea from Wawa, and guess how much that cup of tea costs? With taxes and fees and delivery,
Like $15.
it was $15 for a cup of tea. So when you look at that, we as nutrition people, we look at $15 of food money and we say, oh, we can get a lot of protein, and we can get a lot of fiber, and we can get a lot of, micronutrients in that. And she got a cup of tea, and it was in a cardboard cup with a sleeve on it, and it was in a bag, and it was delivered by a car. So you look at the carbon footprint of this cup of tea and the cost. So that was a big one. And then we talked about, there was only one did McDonald's. And we talked about the packaging. Those foil packages are just so not good for you with the forever plastics that you're consuming. But we did find that a lot of people that ordered from, where did you find, Chipotle and
Chipotle, Cava, Popeyes was one, and Popeyes gave them a deal, so they were able to get lunch one day and lunch the next day.
so we can talk about the cost of food, right? And then we had that conversation, the cost of that Popeyes deal. Yes, maybe they were getting energy, but with the energy, they were getting some toxic chemicals and some excessive nutrients that is not going to be good for them. So what is the end medical cost of that Popeye's deal? They got a deal at the meal, but when they end up and they have the diabetes or the heart disease or the cancer, it's really expensive. So they talked about that was the worst packaging, but the Cava and the Chipotle, they had the.
Like the compost, it was like cardboard compostable, but they did have like a tin, the Chipotle has a tin top to it, but that's recyclable.
So they had that, we talked about that, and then the one interesting thing is, the one young man said that on his app, he had the choice, his was delivered by a bicycle. So it was, and he said on the app, it had the option of how would you prefer your delivery? And did he say?
Yeah, you could choose if you wanted someone to walk your food to you, bike your food to you, or drive a car to you.
Right, so that small little piece of information could be a big educational piece to our student body, that if you're doing DoorDash or Grubhub or whatever it is, ask if it can be delivered by a bike or on foot, or if you're in a house and people are doing, DoorDash, maybe kind of talk together and make one order. So one car is being delivered, but also, I'm a sports dietitian by trade as well. And I know, we do some work with St. Joseph's University, and the head athletic trainer was saying that, the students get a stipend for their meal. And what would happen is they would get their stipend and they would all either go out to eat, or they would go and pick it up and they would go and dine together. But now everybody's DoorDashing and Grubhubbing, and they're putting their orders in and they're going back to their room and they're eating in isolation. So they're missing that community involvement of food, and we know shared meals are so important, so to get there. So, watch the delivery, but if you are going to delivery, make it smart. So then let's go to the dining hall.
Oh, so we talked about food waste in the dining hall, and a lot of students reported, going to the tray line and they see like plates full of food, and they admitted that, sometimes they do. They said the portions were good, and I like the portions because then you can't overconsume, but sometimes you're getting food that doesn't taste great, and then they don't want to eat all the food, or I don't know, it just wasn't their expectation.
They were appalled at the, when the conveyor belt that you're putting the food waste on. The one participant said almost every single tray had a lot of excess food that was just going to waste and going there. One person said that, she asked for 2 pieces of chicken, and they said, no, you can only have 1. And she said, I understood that, and I came back and I got another one, but we gave the recommendation to, Nick, the food service director, maybe, have your employees explain, you can come back for another piece of chicken, have 1, and if you want more, come back, because if he had given her 2 and she didn't like it, 1's gonna go on that plate. Which went to the other really big conversation about, well, sometimes the food's just awful. And the mac and cheese might look great and they give you a nice portion, but when you taste it, it's awful. So we came up with this idea, maybe like, you go out to ice cream and you get a little scoop, you get a little taste. If you like it, you get it. So maybe if they gave people taste of these foods, if they didn't like it, they wouldn't get it, and that food waste is not going to be there. That's a bigger problem, but if we give this information back to administration in Aramark, they can say, that mac and cheese was in the cellar, we're gonna take it out of the menu. And maybe they need to do more tasting with students, maybe they need to have more student panels. If we're gonna introduce a new recipe, have student panels and do the sensory evaluations of it and see, is it an acceptable product? So we'll talk to Aramark, we've talked to Nick, we've talked about this tasting, that might be something that we have to do, but then it came to the clamshell containers in sites, talk about sites.
Well, so they have packaging, I know they have like pizzas down there and there's boxes and that now, but we were talking about potentially, giving students the clamshells that are at the dining hall, if you've ever seen them, they're $5 at dining hall. To repurchase if you want to use it again. But, you can bring it, you could bring it to sites and they pack your clamshell full of food. So then you're taking away the food because sometimes you're on the go for all students, so you have to take it away.
But you're not disposing of the packaging.
What do you think about that? How many people have used those clamshells in the dining hall?
I haven't used them, but I know, I think last year, I, when I first transferred, there was some issues about people getting returned back to the dining hall and stuff like that. Maybe there's some stuff with them. So I'm not sure. Guys.
Yeah.
That person.
Interesting. Yeah, so I mean, would you use one if you had a clamshell, you could take your leftover food out, or you could take your food out, would you use it?
I would, and I would.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what about some, yeah,
I think I'd be horrified at sites, like I know a lot of people just take their own Tupperware and take food out of the dining hall, so I'm less inclined to pay $5.
So true, yeah.
The $5 is like a steep, people don't wanna do that, and then you can still return it, but having to buy it again is crazy, cause I thought you can swap them, you not swap them,
yeah, you talk,
you
yeah,
still swap them.
yeah.
Cause they
Swap
don't
it
even,
for
they don't
Yeah.
advertise it anymore,
Yeah.
which is like
Okay,
they haven't been at we talked about that, actually, they haven't been at
Yeah.
the front in like a while, they don't advertise it anymore. I
okay,
think because no one was returning it,
Yeah.
so they were like running out, and then they just stopped advertising it, cause they don't want people to buy them and not return them, cause they reuse them,
right,
so I haven't been to that.
Yeah, I don't know about
But
that.
I know at the beginning, this was where they were there. And even at the end of like last year, they were not like.
so advertising that more, and is that $5 a barrier? Yeah, it's spend $5 to.
Say, so it sounds silly, but like, isn't like for a meal site itself, like what, $7?
$6.55.
Well, breakfast is actually $9. Yeah, I think that's a little like.
Yeah.
well,
Well, yeah, but it's still one meal swipe for like students, but I think you should be able to like maybe use the meal swipe.
I agree, that means so much.
Cause I think it's like the Tupperware, I've done that, I brought Tupperware and just taken my food with, which you're not supposed to do, but I think it's silly to buy a $5 plastic container when I have like glass Tupperware.
Okay.
And I think that should be allowed, like you should be able to bring your own dish, but they're like super mad about that, but you.
If you do get one of those reusable clamshells and use it through the semester, do you get the deposit back when you turn it in the last time?
No, because they'll give you another one, like, so,
But if you're graduating and you don't need it anymore, will Airmark give you your $5 back? Is it a deposit?
I've
or-
never heard.
no, you purchase, you purchase it,
Yeah.
you,
It seems like it should be a deposit that you get back,
yeah,
but
Yeah, or
I've
you just
never-
have to keep it, you don't have to
Yeah,
return
you
it.
can
Yeah,
keep
it
it
goes
back
to
there.
it, I feel like would make sense.
Yeah, cause you have to return it in order to get a new one, like cleaned and everything, but I don't know if it's like more of a deposit, I've never heard of anyone getting their money back.
so I guess my question, this is my real question, and we can investigate this. Do they actually reuse them, or are they just throwing them out?
I think that's been done.
You turn them back in on the conveyor belt,
Yeah.
so I would imagine they just get washed with the other dishes.
But when you, explain to me the process of, I buy one, and I go in, I return it, do they hand me a new one?
I've never bought one, but I understand the thing is like you buy it, fill it up, rinse it out, and then you can get a new one, or you just keep using the one that you rinsed out. But I think if you come in with one and say you're returning it, people give you one. But you have to return it
Not
clean
a lot
either
of
way.
Good, accurate information on how it works, I would objectively
They
say.
don't advertise.
Even the way we're talking about it, or like, I don't know, I remember my first semester here last fall, that was the thing we talked about promoted, and then like by spring to spring. They weren't talking about it now fall, I don't know what's that.
Great information, we
But I
can
don't
bring it
know.
back to Nick and we can say,
I think the clamshells are like better bang for your buck, cause like you said, the portions you give them the clamshell, I think, they fill that up. And I know a lot of like sites, eating food here is expensive, like if you're using meal swipes, most times it's like 2 meal swipes instead of just one. And it's like less healthy food.
Jen Maresh has a comment.
yeah.
Jen, do you want to unmute yourself and,
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
yes,
Okay, so I'll just summarize what I wrote in the chat here. I don't know if you guys have had this happen, but I've had it happen a few times where I brought my reusable container to a food truck and they sort of just lost track of it while they were packaging food for, many people who had orders ahead of me and behind me. And so they put it into a styrofoam container and then that into a plastic bag with the utensils. And when I pointed out the error, they then proceeded to just move the food into my reusable container and then throw away all that stuff that was, it was very dismaying for me to be like, no, that was the whole point of giving you the reusable stuff. So I'm wondering with these reusable clamshells you guys are thinking about, if anyone has thought of a way to help the food packagers keep track of who wants their food put into these containers when they're obviously incentivized to move through orders as quickly as they can. So I stopped using the food trucks for that reason, but I would like to give them my business again if I weren't worried about this problem, because they will also throw away my plastic utensils if I say, oh, I don't need those. They'll just throw them right in the garbage, unused. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there while you guys are thinking about these reusable containers, the perspective from the folks packaging the food, and what their priorities are.
To move the line.
Yeah.
To move the line.
Which is quite understandable, right?
Yeah, okay, so I mean, this is great information, and then maybe this could be our quest for next semester of getting the education out there. So let me ask you this question. If we were to do a study and said, we want 50 students to participate in the reusable clamshell container for a semester, would you buy into it? And like, you can't clamshell. Like if we gave you a clamshell and so many vouchers to the dining hall, would you do something like that and to share the experiences that you have? You think we could do that? Okay, all right. Because I mean, do you think if it was more streamlined, would you use these containers?
I'm sure it was more streamlined than yes. I think I live off campus now, but I'm sure if we offered the freshmen and sophomores,
They don't even know about it.
down demographic to reach out to, and they can partner with.
And we have to also work around, like, I guess, if we're talking about sites protocol or green section. We're talking about sites protocol with like the staffing, if what they're allowed to use for packaging, because I know like Chick-fil-A has to use their Chick-fil-A cups, their Chick-fil-A bags, Chick-fil-A boxes.
I think it'd be hard to implement. It's like, just because that,
Yeah.
that gets so backed up here, that like people, especially at Chick-fil-A, like you're waiting like 30-45 minutes sometimes. So, but I think at the dining hall, if it was advertised, I think especially people living in the residence halls would use it.
Okay, and then I have another question, how many people live off campus? You guys live all off campus. If we had a program that you could once a week, so you signed up for my program, it was $25 or so for $25, you got 5 mason jars. And those mason jars were filled with beans, rice, quinoa, oats, another type of grain. So you make that one purchase, but then you can come back as whatever you want, and you can get a refill of each of those jars for $1 a jar. Is that something that students would do as long as the offerings were things that you would use? Or is that just like my own little like dream?
I think it's a good idea. I just think it requires a lot of like outreach to people. Like a lot of us, it's not easy to get young, like people working on student depression and sophomores to get on board with something that. So the dining hall. This idea though, I think that'd be very helpful people moving off campus,
Right.
because it's very hard to compare those foods if you're not used to living off campus, and like what can actually be cooked in the door. I think like the air fryers, yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? So like different demographic people living on campus.
But if we had specifically focused to commuters, people that are in their own, so that you can get this box, and with that box, there's all these recipes, all these easy recipes that you can do, and then we could link it, and this is available with the resource pantry too, so they can do things like that. Is that something that?
You have to have a commuter for.
Even like South Campus apartments would be there, 'cause we have kitchens on South, and I know a lot of people like hate going to Giant, because like you said, you can't walk there, the shuttles take forever, because it's one shuttle.
Right.
And it's like a 1.5 mile drive, it takes like 15 minutes, just because of how much traffic there is, so I think that would be like beneficial for even people living in the South. Along north, no one has, I think you can only have a microwave in a fridge,
Yeah.
so they can't really do much, but.
Okay, yes.
My only thought with that is if, like, you're still gonna have to go to the grocery store to get other groceries, if that's not enough, and then, like, does that defeat the purpose? Like, you still get that, like, local food, which is really great, but then you'll have to go supplement with other.
Right. We're just thinking that if that's just one one step of more sustainable packaging. And like, so you're using that mason jar and you're just, and we're buying in bulk, so the cost is going to be lower, and then you're just going to, I mean, I think it's just the whole mindset of, what should your kitchen look like? Like, what does the sustainable kitchen, like, we always laughed, I go back to Joan Welsh, and she used to have her students, come to her home and she would cook with them, and we were going to the Good Food Festival, and she had a little brunch for the students and the garden interns at the time, and they said, I wonder what Dr. Welsh's house looks like, and the one intern said, I bet she has like all these old, like, reusable yogurt containers, and sure enough, she had right up there from 7 Stars, a yogurt container, and we laughed, and she probably still brought it to Boston with her, so.
Now we do it.
And now we do, oh yeah, we're like the plastic junkies, and, that, well, we have that 2 seconds left, 2 minutes left, but thank you so much, I'd love to continue this conversation, and.
Can we check to see if any of our online folks have questions or comments? Just wanted to give them an opportunity.
No questions, but I really enjoyed this lively discussion.
Thanks all.
Thanks, Paul.
Same, thanks for giving this talk and letting us know the student perspective on this issue. It's really interesting.
Jeanie and Ella, if you're comfortable with it, we can post the summary document when we post the video. So any of you who would like a copy of this document, you'll be able to download that soon.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you, everyone, and there's food.
All right.
Thank you very much.